WHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah Ibrahim, and this is Mornings with Mubarakah, which is your Wednesday morning voice. Every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., you know that it's Wednesday because we're here. So we are streaming live on TuneIn Radio. So if you are in your car, if you got the app on your phone, you can listen to the whole show. We are also live on newhavenindependent.org. We are live on Facebook, on Instagram. We are on Periscope. We're a little bit everywhere. Okay. So it's no reason why you can't tune in live on Wednesday mornings. I am here with the beautiful Shefau.
Yes, thank you.
Who's joining us today, and we are going to talk a little bit about her. Shefau is a New Haven resident. She is an educator for 20 years, a mom of 3.
Yes.
She comes from a line of educators, and she has recently shifted her focus from academic education to health and wellness education.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about her journey and how that came about and what she's doing now. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate this opportunity.
It is a pleasure. So this is just a conversation, and we just want to have these people listen. So awesome. So Shefau, tell me a little bit about your background. You come from parents who are educators.
Yes. So yeah, my parents were both educators, and I was one of those children who I'm lining up my dolls and my siblings and stuffed animals, playing school, and helping my parents grade papers. My dad is Ghanaian, and in West Africa at the time when my dad was growing up, education wasn't public and it wasn't free. So you had to be tested to go to school, and you also had to pay to go to school. Of all of my dad's siblings, he was the one that got to go. And it ended up being a very important role because of who my granddad was in our village. My dad did a lot of transliterating and transferring things from words to text. And, once he came to the States and knew the value of education and saw that it was free, we grew up in a household where college wasn't a choice. We knew we were going to college, and it was just a matter of how many degrees you're getting. And so we're, a family of some pretty high achievers.
So big family? How many siblings do you have?
I've got 3 sisters and 1 brother, and every single one of us has gone to college and has advanced degrees. And, despite that, we still grew up in humble communities with a range of Black people around us. And because of my educational experience as a student, this is something that really drove my focus as an educator as far as what my target audience is. I've always taught Black and brown children, and that's always been my goal in urban schools.
So tell me a little bit about kind of like when you decided that you wanted to be an educator, and did that evolve into wanting to be an educator for Black and brown kids, or that's what you knew from day one?
Yeah, so I think I didn't consciously know that from day one. But when I was 19, I was a senior counselor for the LEAP program here in New Haven. LEAP stands for Leadership, Education, and Athletics in Partnership. It's an academic and social enrichment program that offers summer camps as well as after-school programming. Through LEAP, I went to my first camping trips, starting out very afraid of nature and now loving nature, needing to be in nature every single day. And it was that experience where we had to design our own curriculum, and I had these lofty dreams and goals for my 9 and 10-year-old girls. But once we got in the classroom and had the limited resources, and I saw the range of abilities of students who were the same age, but had a broad range of what they were able to do and the things that they were struggling with, that's when I knew that I really wanted to be in the classroom, in schools, in New Haven, to be able to help children not only with their academic learning, but get those soft skills that I felt was missing from my own teachers when I was growing up. Being able to know that it's okay for them to be who they are. Checking children when they're ranking on each other. If a student is cold, let them wear their coat. If they're hungry, give them a snack. If they're tired, let them rest for a little bit. But then also keeping the expectation for them to do their best every time.
So when you So as you began to work with the LEAP students, you like knew that that was what you. Now, when you started working with LEAP, so one of the things I actually did not tell you is I was a LEAP junior counselor.
You were.
I was their very first year in existence.
Oh wow!
My senior year in high school.
So you know
And
my husband
also-
and his brother, they were there back then
Who's
too.
your husband?
Dabre-Rufus is my brother-in-law.
Oh my goodness!
Charles Rufus is my husband. Yes,
yes.
Yep.
Look at that. I didn't even
What a
know.
small
I didn't.
world.
It's such a small world. I
Yes.
didn't even know Chiquito was related to you.
Yes, yeah.
So when it's so funny because I was a junior counselor for them my senior year in high school and also worked with 9 and 10-year-old girls.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, it was life-changing.
Yeah.
There's no way that a person with a beating heart can go through that experience and not be moved.
When you the question that I had in my mind was, were you already pursuing teaching when you went to LEAP?
No, I wasn't. I was a music major. I was on a scholarship at UConn. I was in the band. And I was good, you know. I enjoyed playing my flute and piccolo, but I did not enjoy the culture shock of being one of a handful of black people in a 300-piece band. There were times where I either felt invisible or I felt like I was on display. And both were extremely uncomfortable. I came back home, dropped out of the band, lost my scholarship, and then went to Gateway. And that's when I started working with LEAP because my husband now, who I was dating at the time, he was a counselor at LEAP. And when I saw, you know, how he was with children, I found that very endearing. When I saw that the counselors lived on site, I, you know, thought that just demonstrated a deep level of commitment that I wanted to be a part of. And I still am involved with LEAP to this day. And so it's something that has shaped the way I raise my children. 2 of my children have participated in the program. 1 of my children is at work there now. And it's something that I truly believe in because it really opened my eyes to the disparities in education. And it was at that point that I shifted my major to education and wanted to be a teacher and went to Southern and then graduated with 2 degrees in education from there.
Awesome. Yeah. And so as you went into your career of education, was it what you expected? Were you able to, a lot of times when people have kind of like these goals of changing the system and then they get in the system and they like, oh, I can't do all this stuff that I wanted to do. Like, did you have that experience in teaching?
So I did. At first when I was teaching, you know, I was pumped up. I was newlywed. I had no children. Working on weekends was not a problem. Spending my own money wasn't a problem. And then I became a mom. And my priorities changed. But being a mother also made me so much more of an educator. It just gave me so much more of a nurturing touch that I just didn't have before motherhood. And when I realized that it wasn't exactly what I thought, I said, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong type of school. Because the first school I taught at was a public charter school in Atlanta. I came back to Connecticut and went.
So what about it wasn't what you thought?
Well, this school had an abundance of resources. This school had a great representation of black and brown teachers. Our principal was white, but she gave us, she didn't give us a lot of autonomy, which I kind of thought I would have, but it's a charter school, so they have a different level of priorities. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'm just in the wrong type of school. And, you know, I came back to New Haven. When I went back into the classroom, I went into a charter school in New Haven. And I thought things were going very well. And I ended up moving to out of the classroom to an administrative type of position and realized that the messages that this particular school system was giving just were not consistent with our culture. So, you know, the message of climbing the mountain to college. Not to knock college. I went to college. I loved it. But it's not for everyone, and it's not the only path. But it was presented in that way. And on the flip side of that, the implications are, if college is the only way, then what are we saying about the people that did not go? And, you know, there were some chants and cheers that kind of were elitist, in my opinion. And there would be times where they chant and I just not say the words because I didn't believe it in my heart. And so I began to speak out. And in speaking out, I'm thinking that I'm doing the right thing by informing people of how I feel as a black educator, because when I came to this system, there was underrepresentation, even though the majority of the students were black and brown. The educators weren't. And I was not well received the more I spoke out. And it didn't deter me, but it just made me realize, hey, maybe not that type of school. So then I went into public education, into early childhood. So I said, maybe I got to get them early. Not exactly what I thought it was going to be. Under-resourced. Also a lot of nepotism at the time, where, not to say it didn't matter what your credentials are, because you needed to have the credentials, but who you knew and who you got along with would take you farther.
Further in the administration of the school,
or in the system in general.
In the system
at the time.
Okay.
And this is, about maybe 15 years ago at this point.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, maybe I need to try charter school again. And so, I did a Montessori school, lots of different types of schools. And then I realized the system is not broken, that it is crooked from the beginning. We were not intended to be a part of it. And so with integration, they begrudgingly bring us in. But at no point was there anything to repair the damage that was done from not educating us.
So what are some of the more specific things that you saw that kind of like you felt like it conflicted with what you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, just the push toward standardized testing, how that really is a huge priority. And those tests are not developed by educators. And so, for example, there is a test currently, or at least last year, being administered, 2 tests, reading inventory and a math inventory. They are computerized. There is no option to take it written. There are students who have legitimate diagnosed test anxiety who, when they get in front of that computer, they freeze. But when they take a test on paper, their skills are there. It translates. And so, that's one thing. And then just the push to really not teach to the test, but teach the test strategies. And, just the instructional time that would take. And some of the content, the fact that Black history is not a part of the curriculum, or it hasn't been until I think it's just been voted in this year, that Black and Hispanic history will be a part of the curriculum. But the fact that it's not already and that I had to infuse it is something I struggled with, because most teachers don't take that into consideration, and they don't make it their business to do that. The lack of cultural sensitivity toward parents, the lack of relationship building, there's like nothing in place for that. And then, as we'll talk about my journey into wellness, just the lack of support for educators, not just financially, but mentally. There's no support for the difficulties that we experience in the classroom.
So what was it that made you kind of like shift? Did that shift come gradually? Were you able to incorporate health and wellness into your academic education?
Yeah.
Or how did that shift happen for you?
It started out kind of at a trickle, and then the floodgates opened. So I've always been health conscious since about 2001, where through my diet and positive thinking and naturopathic medicine, I was able to beat sarcoidosis, which is an autoimmune disease. And when I was suffering from that, I was told I wouldn't be able to have children. I was not given a limited life expectancy, but the implications were there when I'm going to pulmonologists and I'm in the waiting room with 80-year-olds and I'm 24. And so through naturopathic medicine, positive thinking, and changing my diet, I was able to beat it. I was tested 2 years ago, and the doctor questioned if I had it in the first place. And I said, no, I had a biopsy, so I definitely did have it, because there's no sign of it whatsoever.
So what is sarcoidosis?
So sarcoidosis is inflammation of connective tissue. And it targets Black and brown people overwhelmingly. Bernie Mac died of the disease. And it affected me in my eyes and in my lungs. And I had biopsies of growths that were coming from my eyes, and that's where they saw exactly what it was. I was prescribed prednisone, which is a really harsh steroid. In fact, so harsh that you can't take it long term. It's 10 days off, 10 days on, those type of cycles, and horrible, horrible side effects. And my husband was the first person to tell me, I think these doctors are making you sicker. Not to knock medicine, but in my case, that was true. And he said, I really think we need to change the diet. And I was skeptical and I was afraid when I went to another doctor, she told me off the record, she closed the door, she said, off the record, the only people I've ever seen beat this are people who've gone through naturopathic medicine. And this is maybe 2 days within my husband telling me, and then she tells me. And I booked an appointment with a naturopath, and ever since then, I just really...
Kudos to your doctor for actually
right?
That.
Yeah, I got to find her again. She's in Atlanta, but shout out to her. Like, she definitely changed my life because I wanted to be a mom, and I was struggling with getting pregnant. And, and so once I did that, I really believed in the food, either feeding you or killing you. And I'm just very conscious of every bite I take.
What was some of the shifts you made in your diet?
No processed food. I do have a little bit now, but at the time, I went completely vegan because I wanted to eliminate any animal byproducts, processed food.
Like steroids and antibiotics they give animals. Okay.
Yep. And I also did a flush as well. I did a Teo heat cleanse, which is a 20-day flush. It's based in Chinese medicine. And I felt different. I had energy where I would get tired walking upstairs or tired washing my hair or tired sitting up, like exhausted because of the issues with my lungs. And so...
the disease restricted your breathing?
Yes, because I had growths in my lungs.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And there was at one point where I had a condition called pleurisy where the lining of your lungs, that liquid that's there, dries out. And so the lining of your lungs rubs against each other as you're breathing. And every inhalation and exhalation was extremely painful. Yeah. Yeah, it was something else. And I was 24 years old. Yeah, it was scary.
And how long did it take you after your dietary changes for them to say, oh, you don't have this anymore?
Well, I didn't go and get checked until a couple of years ago, but I knew myself that I didn't have it because I wasn't experiencing the symptoms, and I got pregnant 3 times. And so...
That's a good indication.
Right. And so I just wanted to confirm, what my inklings told me. And then, it was 3 years ago when I went for allergy testing, because I do still have allergies, where, they did chest x-rays and blood work, and then he was like, well, who told you had it? I definitely actually had it, because the biopsy shows the cells. And that's how they see granules, I think is what it's called. Okay. But whatever it's called. That's how they confirm what it is.
All right. And what are some of the ways that impacted your life that you felt like you need to share?
Well, at first I was one of those annoying vegans where, like, at Thanksgiving, I'm, like, praying for the soul of the dead bird. And I'm like, here, babe, here's your vegan tofurkey or whatever. And so I was one of those people. But then, I realized you can't drag people along your path. You can't. I can just walk my path, and if people ask, then I'm all for that. I'm not vegan anymore. I consider myself a flexitarian. Okay. Where I can eat what I want, but I don't want red meat. I've never eaten pork in my life. I very rarely will eat chicken. I do enjoy fish. I do enjoy salmon and tuna. I love my sushi. And that's about the extent of any flesh that I'll eat. But I don't like white bread, white rice. That's just not, my palate doesn't enjoy that. Candy, no. No, my palate just doesn't enjoy it anymore.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah Ibrahim, and you're listening to Mornings with Mubarakah on 103.5 FM, also streaming live on TuneIn Radio. And today we are talking to Shefau about her journey as an educator, from an academic educator to a health and wellness educator. Yes. So you recently made a huge leap from educator, working for the man.
Yes. Every night and day.
To really pursuing your passion and launching your own health and wellness company. What is it that made you take that big leap? Because that's a big leap.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, everybody got a side hustle.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people have the courage to take that side hustle into a career.
Yeah.
So tell me about that thinking process
Yes.
of when you thought it might? Did you always know you want to do this?
No, I didn't. I was
your
never.
side hustle.
No, it was. I didn't look at myself as an entrepreneur. My husband always believed in me, but I did not look at myself that way. I had been practicing yoga for a long time. My eldest son is 16, and I first started when I was pregnant with him. And this was just my own personal practice. But then about 4 years ago, when I was teaching kindergarten at Edgewood Magnet School, our principal hired Lonnie Rosen, who is the founder of Full of Joy Yoga, which is school-based and focuses on children. So she hired her to come in and teach yoga to those of us who were interested. I jumped right on it and saw this as permission for me to do this with my students, because it's just something I just did myself. And I incorporated mindfulness, but the way she did it was, this is something that, is at the forefront. And so that's when I realized, okay, this is something that we can do. We only had her a few times in our classroom, but since then...
So wait a minute, was she teaching the children or the adults?
She was teaching the children.
Okay. All
Yep.
right.
And so since then, I would dip and dabble. But what really led me to the swan dive was back in 2017. I had a very, very difficult year. And during that year, I was assaulted by a student several times. And I describe it that way because when I first sustained initial injuries, I went to my therapist because I was struggling with being a teacher who's being hurt by a student, and just the feelings that I felt with that.
A student in grade?
Kindergarten.
And
so that's another thing. I'm like, how could a child this small hurt me this bad? Like, this can't be real. But then I'm dealing with, it was 3 injuries, and the main one was bad. It woke me out of my sleep. It was a really bad injury. It caused me to be out of work and in physical therapy for 2 months. And I also was in cognitive behavioral therapy to deal with that. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that was difficult for me to accept because I felt like, I just need to be closer to this child. I'm a great teacher. He just needs to understand love. He just needs a little love. No. It was other things that I just was not qualified to give at this time. And so, I struggled with that relationship. I struggled with the parents' relationship because, this is their baby. And so I struggled with that. I struggled with, who am I as an educator if I can't teach? I'm out of work for 2 months. Like, what does this mean for me? This is all I ever wanted. And now I'm at the point where I got PTSD. I can't go to work. And so I took time off and checked my ego to say, you don't have to be the super teacher right now. And it was my husband that helped me with this. He would say to me, your students are only yours for 10 months. But these children are yours for the rest of their lives. And he would watch me year after year missing basketball games, gymnastic meets, birthday parties, because I got to do my research. I got to do my lesson plan. I'm an amazing teacher. Amazing. But I wasn't an amazing mom. I wasn't an amazing wife at that time. And I got to the point where they didn't want to be around me. I didn't want to be around myself. I didn't want to be around myself. And it was also around the time where I was glued to the news, watching a lot of brothers and sisters being brutalized, and I couldn't turn it off. And so all of those things paralyzed me. And I checked my ego to realize, I don't have to be this amazing teacher. I need to be present for myself. And it was my therapist who, shout out to Kasuf Bradford, he's an amazing therapist. He, and he's a black man too. He is the one that told me to incorporate mindfulness and meditation. Because, at that time I wasn't well, I wasn't eating, and I've always been slim. And so me not eating, I was unhealthy. I was not recognizable. I was not sleeping well because of the PTSD. I was having flashbacks. I was jumpy. Someone would sneeze and I would be on edge. Or I'd hear a door slam and just be extremely on edge. And so he encouraged me to make sure I'm eating, make sure I'm exercising, and make sure I'm meditating. So I'd go back week after week. He's like, are you eating? Yes, I'm eating. But I'm not meditating. I'm not exercising. All right. Are you exercising? Yes. Are you meditating? Yes. And once I meditated, that's when I turned the corner. Because I look at it like, when I pray, that's me speaking to God. But when I meditate, that's when I'm quiet and I listen. And that just helped me find peace that I just didn't have. And once I found that and saw how I was able to really pull myself out of that hole and find myself again, I felt compelled to share this with my community. Because, you know, a lot of what I dealt with was, I'm a strong black woman. This isn't happening to me. I'm going to keep on going to work. I'm going to keep pushing. But I wasn't myself, and I had to be taken off because of the physical injury, because of the emotional stress, and just really understand, like, a lot of our sisters, a lot of our brothers deal with trauma on their own. And so when I realized, you know, I can incorporate mindfulness in my classroom, but I can also incorporate this in my community, that's when I got an initial certification to become a yoga and meditation teacher. And that was in October of 2018. And that's when I officially started teaching classes. I started teaching after school at LEAP. I started teaching at Job Corps. I started teaching on the weekends at Elisa's House of Salsa. And then I also got an opportunity to teach at One Village Healing. And that's where I teach a genre of yoga called trap yoga.
Trap yoga.
And so what trap yoga
explain to us what trap yoga is.
So trap yoga.
When I tell people this, they're like, what?
And so trap yoga, I use this, well, the way I do it, I do rhythmic and trap yoga. So I don't just exclusively use trap music. I use music from black artists all over the world. So I incorporate Afro beats, I incorporate reggae, R&B, jazz, hip hop, trap music. And I love doing this.
So it's really like black yoga.
It's black yoga. It's black yoga. The music is the heartbeat of what we do. Because I'm a musician at heart, and I have that music scholarship. I love music. But I also studied psychology. And I studied yoga and meditation. So I take all of that, and I've been black my whole life. And so I take all of that. Right, exactly. I take all of that, and I bring that into this experience because I've been in classes where I have felt invisible. I have run to a yoga studio in stress, forgotten my wallet, and been turned away. So I work with agencies so the people who need it the most don't pay. At One Village is donation based. So these sisters come in and they don't pay. They pay if they want to. They give a donation. But the way they've set it up over at One Village, it's just, you know, it's donation based. Most of what they do is donation based. And you work with them too. So you see the things that they're doing. And so with this genre of yoga, the music makes us feel comfortable because we all have songs that take us to a place where, you know, we feel relaxed or we want to get turned up or we're in the mood or whatever it is.
So, and I keep on saying I'm going to come to your class.
Yes.
So if the music makes you turned up, most people think of yoga as and soothing.
Well,
but can you and to bump, 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 bump?
Maybe not to that, but that's kind of in the middle. So I've got like a little rise and fall of energy. I start out with a warm up that's very relaxing. Then I work our way up, activating our different energies, opening up our heart, and then we do a little bit of movement and music. But and the reason why this is so important, as black women, we are overly scrutinized in society. We are judged harshly for doing things that we enjoy. And so I create an environment for women where we can be a little ratchet if we want to, and you're not going to be judged. Nobody's going to, you know, it's not a contest. If you want to let loose and let go, feel free to do that. And so I give people an environment to do that. And then with children, of course, I'm not doing no boot popping with the kids. With the children, you know, again, I use black artists because there is a cultural disconnect that happens in schools. And so when I incorporated this in my classroom, this gave them an opportunity for their music to be a part of their healing.
So what do you say to people who may say that it's distorting yoga and yoga should be done traditionally? And so how do you respond to that kind of stuff?
See, here's the thing about yoga. A lot of people think yoga is about asana, which are the poses. But there are 8 limbs of yoga. Yoga, there's a form of yoga that is charity. There's a form of yoga that is meditation. There's a form of yoga that is chanting and music. There's a form of yoga that is self-study. The asana, the movement, is just one part of 8. And so yoga being a journey of the self, to the self, through the self, There is no way that I can take this journey without incorporating music because it's who I am. We all have organs that play beautiful music. They work in harmony to the beat of our heart. We have music in us. And I just bring that out.
Do you think that using that type of music makes people, black people in particular, more open to the experience?
Some black people. Because, we're not a monolith. Not all black people get down like that. That's just how I get down. And I'm bringing what I do, what has helped me, to my community. And it just so happens that it resonates with a lot of people, and women in particular. Yeah.
What are the benefits that you think that people have from opening up to yoga and your particular type of yoga?
Yeah, yoga, there are studies that prove yoga reduces stress and anxiety. It helps you to decrease stress. It helps you to improve your memory. And I also incorporate a guided meditation session at the end of each class where I not only help people calm down, but help people take comfort in knowing that there are always 3 things that we can control. We can always control what we think, what we feel, and what we do. We always have that power.
Absolutely.
With the power of our minds and our breath, we can control our heartbeat. With a thought, we can make our hearts pump, or we can calm them down. And I do a progressive relaxation where we tense our muscles and relax, and just remind them, if you find yourself in a situation where your jaw's clenched or you got your fist clenched, you have the power to take in a breath and just let it go. You always have that power, and that's something that I really want people to remember, because at times when I didn't remember that, it spiraled, it would continue. It would turn from a thought to a mood to a condition. And so I just really wanted to gain control of that. And, I'm proud to say I was able to do that without medication, not to knock medication. But, there were times when I dealt with some really severe postpartum depression where I took medication and did not like how that felt. So with this PTSD diagnosis, I was determined to be able to treat it without medication, because I knew that my thoughts got me into this, and I was going to use those powerful thoughts to get me out of it too. And I was able to do that. I'm no doctor. I'm not telling anybody to dump their meds. But I'm just saying this is what worked for me.
So what was that kind of like defining thing that made you say, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to pursue this business?
So during my meditation one morning, I meditate every morning, first of all. It's one of the first things that I do. When I get up, I smudge my house with sage. That's a practice that I do. My family is usually sleeping at the time. But once I do that, I go out on my balcony, I do my yoga, and then I sit down for my meditation. And during that time is when I just let the thoughts pass and not dwell on them, because once I do that, my mind is clear, and then that's when the ideas come. That's when the messages come. And so I got the message that I was working too hard, because I was also incorporating yoga and meditation. My last year teaching, I did it every single day, twice a day with my students, in addition to what I was expected to do as a public school teacher. And so I was told I was working too hard, that you are a great teacher. Use your skills and your energy to focus on doing this. That was the message I received. And so that's when I decided to pursue the certification. And about a year ago, I was at my sister's house, and I just blurted out, I'm going to open a yoga studio by 2020. It's not going to cost me anything. I just said it. And since I said that out loud, these opportunities have been lining up. My initial certification, I was able to get that on scholarship. I'm finishing up a certification program now, which is like for all the marbles at the Breathing Room, which is an amazing yoga studio and center. So amazing that they had a whole section in their training about racial inequity and inclusion and the cultural appropriation of yoga. They had this. I don't know anybody else that's doing this. So this place gave me an opportunity as well. And so
I went to the Breathing Room the first time when I went to One Healing, and I always thought, like I've seen their flyers and stuff, I always thought it was like a room. It is. They shouldn't be called the breathing room.
It's the breathing house.
It's the breathing center.
Yeah,
okay?
you're right. It absolutely
they should
is.
not. Y'all really should change y'all name.
Yes, yes.
Because it gives people the idea that it's this little teeny room. It's like white and everybody sits around and meditate. They have aerial classes.
They have float center.
They have like what, 3 yoga rooms?
Yes, and
like,
each room is named after like some aspect of nature. So you have the forest, and there are tree branches. Yes. You have the cloud
white birch,
where they do
which is beautiful. Oh, I love when people incorporate that into interior design. But yes, okay.
Yeah, so they gave me this opportunity, and I was able, they gave me financial aid, and I was able to, since with my initial certification, teach these classes at LEAP, teach at Job Corps, so that I could earn the money to supplement what they didn't give me, so it didn't cost me anything. And so, it's just power in our words. So much power in our words, positive and negative. Like we talk about somebody being a pain in the neck. Pinched nerves are a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody get on your last nerve. That's a real thing. So we've got to be very mindful with our words because, our words cast spells. We do spelling with our words. And
I always tell people that when you speak something out of your mouth, you've already internalized it 3 times because you thought it. Your words are a physical thing that cross across your tonsils, or across your tongue, across your lips.
Yes,
it is a physical thing, and your ears is the closest thing to your mouth. So before they even hit somebody else's ears, you've already internalized it 3 times.
It's so true.
Yeah,
it's so true.
We have to be very careful about what we say.
Yes. And so I'm glad I said what I said at my sister's house about opening this studio.
You put it out there.
I sure did. It just came out. And since then, I've gotten so much support. I was afraid to tell my mom because, moms are very protective. And I didn't want to hear, well, what about your job? Not once did she say that. Not once. She has been so supportive and always asking me, because I would see her every morning because she puts my daughter on the bus. I would see her and she'd be like, okay, is today Yoga Thursdays? Or what do you got going on today? She's so supportive. And everyone in my family has been very supportive.
Do you think that their support is in some way guided by them seeing the degradation of your body and your mind in doing what you're doing?
That is a great question. I know for my mom, yes, because I would see her every day. And so she would see me.
She saw the change.
Yeah, and I was like dragging myself to work at one point. Dragging myself. And she would see that. I'm not the type of person that would take days. Like I have to be really sick to take a sick day. And now I realize mental health days are perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable. And that's nothing that we should be afraid of. I was worried about the stigma of having that diagnosis of PTSD. But I can't, because just holding on to that didn't help me. Once I let that go, I just felt a lot more free. Yeah.
So tell me what you hope to. What's your mission in what you're doing, and what's your goal?
My mission, the mission of Zenzo Yoga and Wellness, is to improve the educational experiences for Black children. That's my mission.
So you want to focus on children, on Black children?
Well, that is a focus. Okay. Because I can't neglect my sisters. I have had men come to the class as well. I have had white women come to the class as well. And, I can't neglect the people that want it. And so I'm looking for ways to reach different audiences because there's also something to be said for having a sacred space. It's something that's a little different when it's all the children, when it's mommy and me, when it's all Black women, when it's couples. There's just a difference. And so I want to be able to.
One of the things that comes to mind is I think that you create a different experience for Black women when we have spaces that are safe because they're exclusive to us.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, you create a different experience for white women when they're being led by a Black woman.
It's true.
So, because Black women are not often seen as leaders in spirituality, leaders in healing.
Absolutely.
And I think about this often because I can remember when my kids were small, and I homeschooled my kids for the first 10 years. For 10 years.
Wow.
And I would intentionally look for females to help me. So, in Islam, we get the kids to learn the Quran, learn Arabic. And there was a plethora of men that I could go to at the mosque and say, can you teach my child? But I intentionally found a woman who would teach them Arabic and Quran because I wanted them to have that experience of women can be knowledgeable. I wanted them to have female teachers. And I think that that's so important. I specifically would look for female women, for black women. I lucked out at the time, had a black female. Yes. But I think that also changes the experience of non-black people. So even inside of the classroom, not just for black students to have black teachers, it changes the life experience for non-black students to have black teachers. It really does,
yes. And for a lot of my students, I was their first black teacher. And interesting thing about that is some white students and parents who struggle with that. It didn't stop me from doing what I did.
Because they never had a black teacher.
They never had a black teacher. They
it changes the experience.
Black lady telling their kid what to do.
It changes the experience.
It absolutely changes the experience.
I think that it challenges your personal biases.
Yes, and some people are not comfortable with that. Right.
Anytime what we thought was right and correct is challenged, and this is for everybody, not just for non-black people.
It's true.
It always challenges you on an internal level because I have to actually change my thought. And so for some people, it's not just changing the way that you think from a subconscious level. It can be from a very conscious level of your parents or the people in your community saying, black people are this, they are not this.
Right, and then they see me.
Right.
And I'm like, I am a brainiac. Like I skipped a grade in school, graduated top of my class. I'm in 2 honor societies in college. I would play dumb to make people feel comfortable. Like I could be on Jeopardy for real. Like if it's on, I'm like, okay, what is da-da-da? What is da-da-da? Da-da-da? And because I love science, I love reading, I love mathematics, I love learning about the cycles of nature. And I just have always been very perceptive, even as a child. I've always been able to notice subtleties. I would look at a film and be like, oh, that looks like it was shot in 1978, maybe in about South California, like Southern California. As a child, I would hear an accent and know like what part of the world they were from, or like see something and recognize like the biome. Like, I just would pick up on subtleties, and so those subtleties are what like makes us connect with each other, like on a human level. And I just really enjoyed learning. And so I think that is also what made me a good teacher too. Being able to tap into those subtleties and figure out ways to differentiate how I'm teaching what it is that I want different students to learn. And I think that's what's really carrying me over in this health and wellness practice too. Because there's a mystique, there's this thinking that, yoga's for rich white ladies. There is that thinking. I wanted to dispel that.
Now, you said that your goal was to open up a studio by 2020. You want to open up your own space?
So that has shifted a little bit. Okay. I mean, I might possibly still open a space, but there have been so many opportunities for me to teach at other people's spaces that I don't need to do that right now. Okay. I could, but I don't need to right now.
You got like 18 months to decide.
Right, it's down there. I got some time.
2020 is all the way to December of
That's right. That's absolutely correct.
You got 18 months to decide.
Yeah, thank you for letting me see that. That's absolutely right.
You got to make that decision right now. Yeah. So we are on like the last few minutes of the show. Tell our listeners where they can find you, how they can join your class. Tell them how to contact you.
Yes. So my contact is Zenzilla Yoga and Wellness. That's ZENZILLA Yoga and Wellness. That's my Facebook. On Instagram, I'm at Zenzilla Yoga. And my email is zenzillayoga@gmail.com.
And I'll put it in the comments.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I lead trap yoga classes. This is a healing space for Black women and girls. On Thursdays from 6 to 7 at One Village Healing, located at 216 Crown Street downtown. We're on the 4th floor there. I do privates because I have contracts with Job Corps, with LEAP, and so I work specifically with their students. But I'm also looking for any agencies that work with youth that want to incorporate mindfulness. I want to work through you so that your participants do not have to pay for it. And I'm looking at a potential to work with the Well for Women here in Westville and any other places that are interested in incorporating health and wellness, specifically to people of color.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, thank you.
So the beautiful thing is that you heard us give several shout outs to different people and organizations here in the city. And next week we will actually have Hanifa from Wellness here on the show, and we will be talking about healing Black women and the advocacy and work behind that and the necessity of it.
Yes.
So I'm excited. Like I'm rocking here with all these great guests.
Yes, she's
with all these great guests. So I want to thank you for listening. If you have missed the show, then you can find the video on Facebook. And all of our shows are archived on SoundCloud and iTunes. Look for WNHHLP, the New Haven Independent Radio Arm. And you can go back and scroll all of the Morning with Mubarakah shows. So I want to thank you for listening. And as always, go about your week to be a voice and not an echo. We're going to